Betrayed by my own blood, robbed of my father's bakery, and left with nothing. For 6 years I rebuilt my life from the ashes. Now the ones who broke me are desperate, and they want the very recipe they once stole. Today, I'm finally opening that door. The rain fell soft and steady over Houston that morning, like it was trying to wash away something that could never be cleaned. I stood there on the cracked sidewalk, staring at the faded sign above the door. Reed Family Bakery. My father had passed just 3 days earlier, and already the world felt colder than the empty ovens inside. The bell above the door chimed as I stepped in. The warm smell of butter and vanilla still lingered in the air, but something was wrong. Very wrong. Caspian and Talia were waiting for me behind the counter. My half-brother looked tired, but his eyes carried that familiar sharpness. Thalia, my stepmother, stood beside him with her arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. "Zadie," Caspian said quietly, "we need to talk. Family meeting." I felt a flicker of unease crawl up my spine. "Right now? Dad's not even buried yet." Thalia slid a thick envelope across the counter. "It's all in here, legal, signed." My hands trembled as I opened it. The words blurred at first. Transfer of ownership, full rights to the bakery, exclusive recipe rights to the legacy pie. And at the bottom, my father's signature. Except it wasn't his. I looked up slowly. "This isn't real." Caspian didn't flinch. "It's very real, Zadie. Dad left everything to us. You've been managing things. But we all know the legacy pie was never truly yours." Thalia's voice cut through the air like a knife. "You took advantage of an old man's kindness. Everyone in this neighborhood knows you pushed your way into the recipes. Now it's time to step aside." The few early customers and 2 longtime employees froze near the display case. I could feel their eyes on me. My cheeks burned with humiliation. "You're lying," I whispered, but my voice cracked. "Dad promised me this bakery, the legacy pie. That was our thing. He taught me." Caspian sighed, almost like he pitied me. "Promises don't hold up in court, little sister. These documents do. Sign them. Make this easy for everyone." I stared at the papers until the ink seemed to bleed. My father's bakery, the place where I learned to knead dough before I could read, where I stayed up all night perfecting the secret crust of the legacy pie that food critics from Austin to Dallas wrote about. They were stealing it. Right in front of me. I refused to sign. That's when Thalia raised her voice so the whole shop could hear. "Security! Please escort Miss Reed off the premises. She no longer works here." 2 men I didn't recognize stepped forward. My legs felt heavy as they walked me out under the awning while the rain kept falling. Behind me, I heard Talia telling the staff, loud enough for everyone. "She tried to steal the business after her father died. We had no choice." By the end of that week, everything was gone. The bakery, the small apartment above it that had been my home, my reputation in the neighborhood, even the old photo of me and Dad flour-dusted and smiling in the kitchen. They changed the locks before I could take it. I had nothing left except a 5-year-old boy who still believed the world was kind. That night, I sat on the cold metal floor of an old cargo van I'd borrowed from a friend. The rain drummed against the roof like angry fingers. Jasper was curled up beside me under a thin blanket, his small hand clutching my shirt even in his sleep. I pressed my face into his soft hair and whispered, barely loud enough for my own heart to hear, "I'm so sorry, baby. They took everything, but they didn't take you." Tears slipped down my cheeks, hot against the chill in the air. I held him tighter and made a promise into the darkness. "Mama's going to build it all again, from nothing, for you." And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not just grief, not just anger. It was the quiet, terrifying birth of resolve. Because some people only see family as a tool to get what they want. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of how the ones who betrayed me came crawling back 6 years later, and how I made sure they finally understood the true cost of what they stole. This is a story about pain, about starting over, and about turning the deepest betrayal into something no one can ever take away again. If you've ever been hurt by the people who were supposed to protect you, stay with me. The first few months were the hardest. We lived in that old cargo van parked behind an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Houston. Every night I'd lay awake listening to Jasper's soft breathing, wondering how long we could survive like this. The air inside smelled of damp metal and leftover flour. But every morning, I forced myself to smile for him. I started small, really small. With the little money I had left, I bought a second-hand portable oven and set it up inside the van. Elias Grant, my father's old friend, a quiet carpenter with rough hands and kind eyes, showed up one afternoon without being asked. He didn't say much. He just helped me build a simple wooden counter and a small shelf so the dough wouldn't slide everywhere when I drove. "Take it slow, Zadie," he told me one evening while wiping sawdust from his shirt. "Even fire needs time to catch." I nodded, but inside I was terrified. Every time I mixed the dough, memories of the old bakery flooded back. The warmth of my father's hands guiding mine. The smell of legacy pie fresh from the big brick oven. Now I was baking in a metal box on wheels, selling online to strangers who left reviews like, "Surprisingly good for a home baker." Then one rainy Saturday, a shy 19-year-old girl knocked on the van door. Her name was Mia Torres. She had been my very first online customer and kept coming back. "I don't have money to help much," she said, twisting her hands nervously. "But I can clean, pack boxes, or watch your son while you bake. I believe in what you're doing." I hesitated. Trusting anyone felt dangerous after what Caspian and Talia had done. But something in Mia's honest eyes reminded me of the girl I used to be. I let her stay. Slowly, the three of us created a fragile rhythm. Elias would stop by after work to fix whatever broke. Mia learned to handle orders and chat with customers like she'd been doing it for years. And Jasper, he became my little helper, carefully sprinkling sugar on top of cookies with his tiny fingers. We started something new, free weekend workshops for kids from the nearby low-income neighborhood. I taught them how to make simple sweet bread while Elias built small wooden rolling pins for them. Watching those children laugh as flour dusted their cheeks brought a warmth I hadn't felt in years. For a few hours, I could almost forget the betrayal. But the pain never really left. It stayed buried deep, like hot coals under ash. Every time a big bakery chain emailed offering partnership, I deleted the message immediately. The fear was always there, sharp and cold, whispering that if I let anyone close again, they would take everything once more. 6 long years passed this way. I worked until my hands cracked and my back ached. I smiled for customers while my heart stayed guarded. I hugged Jasper every night and told him stories about brave bakers who never gave up, never letting him see how scared I still was. One quiet evening, when Jasper was almost 6, he looked up at me while we were packing orders together. "Mommy, why don't we have grandparents? All my friends at the workshop talk about their grandma and grandpa. Why don't we?" The question hit me like a sudden wave. I froze, my hands covered in flour. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Images flashed. Thalia's cold smile, Caspian's indifferent eyes, the way they had thrown me out while the whole neighborhood watched, the lie they told about me stealing my own father's recipes. I forced a gentle smile and brushed a streak of flour from his cheek. "Some families look different, sweetheart. But we have each other, and that's enough." Jasper nodded slowly, but I saw the small flicker of confusion in his eyes. I turned away quickly so he wouldn't see the tears gathering in mine. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone in the dim light of the van and let myself feel the weight I had carried for 6 years. The anger, the loneliness, the constant fear that everything could disappear again in a single afternoon. But something else was growing too, quietly, steadily. Hope. A few weeks later, I found myself sitting across from a small business advisor, my hands shaking as I signed the papers for our second location, a tiny storefront on the better side of the neighborhood. My heart raced with a mixture of excitement and deep, lingering fear. For the first time in 6 years, I allowed myself to dream about the future. A real bakery. A place where Jasper could grow up surrounded by the smell of fresh bread instead of cold metal. A place that was truly ours. Yet even as I signed my name, that old familiar fear whispered in the back of my mind. What if they come back? What if everything I've built gets taken away again? I closed the folder and took a slow, deep breath. This time, I wouldn't let them. This story is about rising from nothing, when the people who should have lifted you up chose to break you instead. It's about the quiet strength it takes to keep going when trust has been shattered, and how healing begins the moment you decide to protect what truly matters. Because sometimes the deepest wounds don't heal with time, they heal with fire. The new storefront had only been open for 3 weeks when my phone rang. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls still hung in the warm air as I stood behind the counter wiping down the glass display case. Jasper was in the back doing his homework, humming softly to himself. I didn't recognize the number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hello? There was a long pause on the other end. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 6 years spoke, shaky and uncertain. Zadie, it's Caspian. My hand froze on the counter. The rag slipped from my fingers. For a moment, the entire bakery seemed to tilt. The sound of his voice pulled me straight back to that rainy morning. The cold look in his eyes, Thalia's sharp words, the way they had thrown me out like I was nothing. I didn't speak. Caspian cleared his throat. His voice cracked slightly. Look, I know it's been a long time. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious. Behind him I heard another voice, softer, younger, desperate. Please, Zadie, just hear him out. Lyra Quinn, his new wife. I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. 6 years of silence. 6 years of pretending they no longer existed. And now here they were, crawling back into my life like nothing had happened. Caspian continued, his words tumbling out faster. Our bakery, it's failing, badly. There was a scandal, some recipes got questioned, suppliers pulled out, and now we're drowning in debt. Victor Lang, the big chain guy, he was ready to sign a major deal with us, but he wants something special, something unique. He paused. I could almost hear him swallowing his pride. We need your new legacy pie recipe, Zadie, the one everyone's talking about. If we can license it, just for this contract, we might be able to save everything. Lyra jumped in, her voice trembling with emotion. We're family, Zadie. Blood family. Caspian is so sorry for what happened back then. We all are. Please, help us. For old time's sake, for Jasper's sake. The mention of my son's name sent a cold wave through my chest. I looked toward the back room where Jasper sat quietly coloring, completely unaware that the people who had once destroyed his mother's world were now begging on the phone. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. All the pain I had buried for 6 years, the humiliation, the fear, the lonely nights in the van, rose up like a silent storm inside me. But this time it wasn't hot rage. It was something colder, sharper, controlled. I took a slow, steady breath. I'm not saying yes or no over the phone, I said quietly, my voice surprisingly calm. If you want to talk, we meet in person. This Friday, at the old garage behind the warehouse on Pine Street, the one where Jasper and I used to live. Caspian sounded relieved. Thank you, Zadie, really, we'll be there. I hung up without another word. My hands were shaking. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the phone like it had burned me. The beautiful little bakery I had fought so hard to build suddenly felt fragile again, like one wrong move could make it all disappear. That night, after Jasper was asleep, I stepped outside into the cool evening air and dialed another number. Elowen Hale answered on the second ring. Zadie, everything okay? I leaned against the brick wall, my voice barely above a whisper. They called, Elowen. Caspian and Thalia. They're in trouble. Their business is collapsing. They want my new legacy pie recipe to save themselves. They even brought his wife on the line, begging for family. There was a heavy silence on the other end. I told them I'd meet them at the old garage on Friday. Elowen's voice sharpened with concern. Are you sure that's a good idea? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of every single year I had carried alone. They took everything from me once, Elowen. They humiliated me in front of the whole neighborhood. They made my son grow up without knowing what a real family feels like. My voice dropped even lower, cold and steady. They're back now, because they need something from me. I let out a slow breath. This time, I'm not letting them take anything. I paused, the words heavy with meaning. I think it's time they finally understood what they did. This is the moment when the past comes knocking, demanding entrance into the life you rebuilt with your own broken hands. It's a story about what happens when betrayal returns wearing the mask of desperation, and how the quiet strength you've been hiding might be the only thing that can protect what you love most. Because sometimes the people who hurt you the deepest are the ones who teach you how strong you truly are. Now the real question is, what will Zadie do when she finally faces them again? Friday came too quickly. I stood in the middle of the old garage, the same place where Jasper and I had once slept on a thin mattress on the cold floor. The portable oven was long gone, but the faint scent of rust and old flour still clung to the air. Sunlight filtered through the dirty windows, casting long shadows across the concrete. This was where it had all begun. I heard the sound of car doors closing outside. My heart tightened. Caspian stepped in first, looking older and thinner than I remembered. Thalia followed, her usual sharp posture broken by exhaustion. Behind them came Lyra Quinn, Caspian's wife, clutching a designer bag like it was a shield. They stopped a few feet away, taking in the bare space around us. Caspian tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for meeting us, Zadie. This place, it brings back memories." I said nothing, I simply waited. Thalia spoke first, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "We're in real trouble, Zadie. The bakery chain is falling apart. Suppliers have left. Reviews are terrible. Victor Lang was our last hope for a major partnership, but he won't sign unless we bring something truly special to the table." Caspian stepped closer, his hands slightly trembling. "We have a proposal. A good one. If you license your new legacy pie recipe to us, we'll give you 40% of the profits from the entire line. And we want you to be the face of it, the brand ambassador. Your story, your success, it would mean everything." Lyra's eyes were already wet with tears. "Please, Zadie, we're family, blood. We need each other right now. Caspian has changed, we all have. This could be a new beginning for all of us." Thalia reached out, her voice breaking as tears finally slipped down her cheeks. "Family needs to stick together in hard times. We were wrong back then, we know that now." I let their words hang in the silence. I listened to every promise, every apology, every desperate plea. 6 years of buried pain rose quietly in my chest, but I kept my face calm. When they finally stopped talking, I reached into the folder I had brought and laid several documents on the old wooden table Elias had once built for me. "These are copies of the original transfer papers from 6 years ago," I said quietly. "Forensic analysis shows the signature was forged. Here are sworn statements from Elias Grant and Mia Torres describing exactly what happened the day you had me removed from the bakery. The public humiliation, the lies you spread about me stealing my own father's recipes." The color drained from Caspian's face. Thalia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Lyra looked between them, confused and frightened. I continued, my voice steady and low. "I'm not interested in destroying you. I don't need your money. I don't want your partnership." I looked each of them in the eyes, one by one. "I just want you to understand the true value of what you took from me. Not the building, not even the original recipes. You took my trust. You took my sense of safety. You took the future I thought I had with my father's blessing." The garage fell into a heavy silence. Then I spoke the words that seemed to echo off the metal walls. "I don't need anything from you anymore." Before anyone could respond, a small voice came from the side door. "Mommy?" Jasper stepped into the light, rubbing his eyes. He had been playing outside with a ball Mia had given him. His gaze moved curiously across the 3 strangers, then settled on Caspian. He tilted his head slightly. "Who are they?" Caspian stared at the boy. His face went completely pale. His lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, he was looking at his own flesh and blood, the nephew he had never known, the child who carried his family's features in the shape of his eyes and the quiet tilt of his smile. Jasper took a small step closer to me, instinctively reaching for my hand. "Mommy, that man is looking at me funny." Caspian's shoulders began to shake. His eyes filled with tears he couldn't hold back. The weight of 6 lost years seemed to crash down on him all at once. Thalia covered her mouth with both hands, a broken sound escaping her throat. Lyra stood frozen, realizing in that moment how deep the damage truly ran. I gently pulled Jasper behind me, shielding him with my body as I had done so many times before. This was the moment. Not shouting, not screaming, just the quiet, devastating truth standing right in front of them in the form of a little boy who had grown up without them. And in that heavy silence, I felt something inside me finally settle. This story shows what happens when the people who betrayed you are forced to face the living consequence of their choices. It's about the power of quiet strength and the moment when pain turns into clarity. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't loud or cruel, it's simply showing them what they threw away and letting them feel the weight of it. Now everything would change. The weeks that followed the meeting in the old garage were heavy with silence and paperwork. Aloan Hale moved quickly. She gathered every piece of evidence we had, the forged documents, the statements from Elias and Mia, and the recording I had quietly made of that desperate phone call. Victor Lang, the owner of the large bakery chain, proved to be an unexpected ally. After learning the full truth about what Caspian and Talia had done 6 years earlier, he refused to sign any deal with them and agreed to testify about the damage their lies had caused. The courtroom felt smaller than I expected. I sat quietly beside Elowen while the judge reviewed the case. Caspian and Thalia barely looked at me. Their faces carried the tired weight of people who had finally run out of excuses. When the ruling came, it was clear and final. The court restored full legal ownership of the legacy pie recipe to me. They awarded a substantial settlement to cover the years of emotional and financial harm. Caspian's company was ordered to issue a public apology in the local media. I didn't feel triumphant, I felt quiet. A few days later, instead of celebrating with anger or revenge, I made a different choice. I used part of the settlement to create the Legacy Kitchen Scholarship Fund. It would provide free baking classes, mentorship, and support for children who had lost parents or been hurt by family betrayal. Elias Grant and Mia Torres both agreed to help run the program. Elias would teach the children how to build simple tools and stations, while Mia would guide them with the same gentle patience she had shown me years ago. Caspian and Talia fulfilled their public apology. Their statement was short, stiff, and broadcast on the evening news. I watched it once, then turned it off. Their words didn't heal anything, but they no longer had the power to hurt me either. Life slowly returned to its new rhythm. One golden afternoon, a few months later, the late sunlight poured through the large windows of our expanded bakery. The smell of butter, sugar, and warm vanilla filled every corner. Jasper and I stood side by side at the big wooden counter, our hands covered in flour. We were making the legacy pie together, the new version that had become our signature. He was carefully crimping the edges of the crust, his small tongue poking out in concentration. "Mommy?" he asked softly, not looking up from his work. "Yes, baby?" He hesitated for a moment, then continued pressing the dough. "If that man, the one from the old garage, if he comes back someday, do I have to call him uncle?" The question hung gently in the warm air between us. I stopped mixing the filling and turned to look at my son. His hazel eyes, so full of quiet curiosity, met mine without fear. I reached out and gently brushed a streak of flour from his cheek, letting my hand linger on his face for a moment. "No, sweetheart," I said softly, my voice warm and steady. "You don't have to call him anything." Jasper nodded slowly, thinking. "Then what should I remember?" I smiled, the kind of smile that comes after surviving storms you never thought you'd outlast. "You only need to remember one thing. Real family isn't about blood. It's about the people who stay when everything gets hard. The ones who show up even when it's inconvenient. The ones who help you build when the world tries to tear everything down." Jasper thought about that for a moment, then gave me a small, bright smile. "Like you, Mommy, and Elias and Mia." "Yes," I whispered, pulling him into a gentle hug, flour and all. "Exactly like that." We finished the pie together and slid it into the oven. As the door closed, the warm glow lit up both our faces. In that quiet moment, I realized the deepest truth. Justice hadn't come from destroying Caspian and Talia. It had come from refusing to let their betrayal define me, from building something stronger, kinder, and more lasting than anything they could ever take away. Some people only understand the value of family when they've lost it completely. And by then, it's usually too late. This story is a reminder that the greatest form of justice isn't always revenge. Sometimes it's simply choosing to rise, to heal, and to create a legacy so strong that no one can ever steal it again. Because in the end, the recipe that matters most is the one you protect with love, and the life you build when the ovens go cold. Thank you for staying until the end. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. We appreciate you more than you think. If this tale stirred something deep inside, we invite you to remain part of this frontier of memories. More true stories of honor, compassion, and destiny are waiting for you here. Subscribe, share, comment, and thank you for riding with us today. Aviso legal, barra disclaimer. Our content is designed for artistic and entertainment purposes and may reinterpret historical themes using fictional touches. We apply AI tools thoughtfully, only to support production, while keeping human supervision over editing, emotional tone, and narrative coherence. We always comply with regulatory guidelines for AI-based media and avoid deepfake practices or identity manipulation. All supporting components remain legally sourced. Please ask for authorization before sharing or adapting any segment. Your respect makes it possible for us to continue telling meaningful stories.